Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, literature enthusiasts of all ages, welcome. My name is Mark Alexander McClish, award-winning author of Adhara Sonder, and today I'll be your host on this very special episode of Nights with Ebon Pinion. Today I have the uncommon pleasure and privilege of interviewing, for the first time in over a year, the founder of Curious Corvid Publishing, Ravven White. Ravven, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
This interview is very special, near and dear to me, because we see interviews with all the talented authors and poets in the Curious Corvid house, but rarely do we get to talk one-on-one with the powerhouse behind it all. Ravven is incredibly enthusiastic about her authors, and she is so very good at cherishing them. But what I want to talk to you about today is why Ravven herself and her company are worth cherishing as well. Now, Ravven, the first question that I have for you is the question everyone's been asking, what everyone wants to know. What makes Curious Corvid Publishing different from other publishers?
I think it's a variety of things, but I think mostly what it comes down to is we are passionate about authenticity and realness. We believe in creative freedom and for having control over what our stories are and not having them be censored or dictated by whatever is popular or mainstream. And we have created a really special community of authors who are just very kind and considerate and supportive of each other. And I think that's just something that makes us really special in general.
And that authenticity shows through in the way that you conduct yourself in your business and with the people that you interact with. It shows to everybody, and we can all see that how authentic you are, that you are a real person, not just somebody trying to market. But for those of us who are watching at home and are not familiar with the publishing world, not really familiar with how things work, and the difference between indie versus industry, what would you say are the major differences between an indie press and maybe the indie press experience versus mainstream publishing?
I think one of the biggest differences is personalization. And in mainstream publishing and mainstream traditional publishing, it can be very business transactional kind of a thing. You're working with a lot of different people who take on different aspects of your book, and you don't really always know what's happening or what's going on. In the indie world, you are afforded a much more personal touch to your interactions. So, for instance, through Curious Corvid, I have one-on-one meetings with my authors all of the time to make sure that we are on the same track and they know what's happening. I make sure they're included on every process of their book, from the design to the marketing strategy to whatever it is that they have questions about. I try to make sure that all of their needs are met and that they are aware of what's happening with their book through the process. And I think one of the things that is so powerful in the indie community is being able to tell your story without having to fit into a box. And in traditional publishing, a lot of the story narratives that are circulating are very similar in flavor, in genre, even down to the type of characters that are in them and the representation. It can get a bit stale because they're always chasing whatever it is that is currently trending. And in the indie community, people are just writing because they love to write and because they just want to have their stories out there. So you have much more original content, I feel, much more passionate content that is just, it comes out better in the indie community because it's not so much about making a buck, but rather than telling your story the best way possible.
Excellent answer. Very thorough. So it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong here, it seems to me like you're saying that in the indie community, authors tend to be more true to their work, more true to themselves and their craft. Yes. Whereas I like the phrase you use, business transaction-y, to use your turn of phrase, it really is more conducted like a business. It's more about the money. It's more about the sales and the number more than it is about the art. And I would assume that that's fine for some people, that some people are out to, they're trying to make a career out of it. They are doing it because of the marketability. If they're trying to run their writing like a business, then it makes sense to go after what makes the most profit. Yes. But you would posit that indie publishing is more about the truth of the art and being real to what the art needs to be, rather than the trends or the whims of the current time period.
Yes. Yeah, I would.
So which would you say in the long run is more meaningful, more successful?
So I believe that being true to yourself and writing the story that is in your heart, that is in your soul, that's what will lead to long-term success, in my opinion. I was talking about this earlier. I read a lot. Obviously, I'm a writer, and I believe to write well, you need to be able to read and open yourself up to what's happening in the world. And I read a lot of books in and out of mainstream, and they're good books, but they're not necessarily ones that I would come back to again. They're just kind of a one and done deal. And very rarely do I find an author that I feel just compelled to read every single one of their works. It's more just whatever sounds good or whatever kind of tickles my fancy, and the description of the book is why I'll go after it. And I think that when you're writing from a place of passion and you're writing just because that is just what you want to do and you just want to be able to share it with the world, I think that creates long-term readers that will be invested in you as a person and be invested in your books because you're interesting and you are dimensional. And you bring something to the table that makes you human. There's so much distance between most secular authors and their readers because it's much more business-like. When in the indie community, it's just, people every day sharing what it is they have to say.
So it sounds like you're describing the relationship between reader and writer, authors and their audience, is very personal. It's not very much, at least with readers who are like you, it's, there's a certain je ne sais quoi to it about what's going to appeal to you. It depends on who you are as a person, your own experiences. Who knows what you might engage with? It's different from person to person.
Yes.
Is that right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Would you say that the relationship between agent and author is similar to that?
Absolutely. I think the relationship between an agent and an author is incredibly important. And I think that it should be one of mutual respect, mutual enthusiasm, mutual interest. I think that if your agent is kind of on and off with you or with your book or your projects, that you might want to find somebody who is as passionate as you are. If the people that you're working with don't believe in your book as much as you do, or more so, then I don't think you'll get as much out of it that you could if you were with people that actually were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Let's do all of the things for this.
Absolutely. That enthusiasm is invaluable, and it helps authors. I speak from personal experience when I say it helps authors to stay focused and keep the faith, so to speak, to stay believing in our books and in our work. If somebody else helps us believe, Ravven and I, in working together, we've had the experience where sometimes one of us will, slip up a little bit. We'll be having a weekday and we'll think, get overwhelmed and stuff. And the other helps to build the other up. And it's that partnership that is so much greater than the sum of its parts than you could get from, say, self-publishing. Not that there's anything wrong with self-publishing, of course, but that teamwork does add something very valuable to it.
It
So
does.
would you say that is what made you want to be an agent, seeing that there are so many agents out there who don't provide that enthusiasm, so many people being mistreated, and you wanted to do something about it, or what was it that made you want to be an agent?
Absolutely. I I started out self-publishing. I started writing poetry about my life experiences, and I had looked into the traditional route, but my story was very personal, and I didn't want anybody dictating what I could or couldn't write about. And I also didn't want parts of my story, some of the darker parts of it, I didn't want it sensationalized. I just wanted it to be what it was. And so I self-published for that purpose because I wanted to retain my authenticity and who I was when I was writing it. And I started meeting a lot of other people in the community that felt the same, and a lot of writers who were getting left behind, in my opinion, in the writing industry because they just didn't fit the right kinds of molds, or they didn't have somebody advocating for them the way they needed to. So that was the driving force behind why I started doing what I was doing, is because I wanted to help other people find a home for their work, and I wanted to make sure that they were represented the way they deserved to be.
It sounds like you wanted to give them to offer a sort of freedom. Would you describe it in that way? You wanted to give them a freedom that maybe the big industry don't offer very often.
Absolutely.
Freedom to
There,
be themselves, freedom to for their art to be,
yes.
as we talked about what it needs to be. So now tell me about other indie press companies. How do you feel about them?
I believe that there is room for everybody at the table. And I believe that the writing that we create is very much personalized, and that even if we write in the same genre, our stories can be wildly different. And I think it's really important to foster support within the indie community and to be respectful of each other. I have a lot of really healthy relationships with several other dark presses, including Quill Keepers. We have a really wonderful relationship, and we both publish people, but there's no jealousy, there's no competition between, because even though we are both indie publishers, we're doing different things. And so, we share resources with each other, we help support and promote each other. And I think that that's really important, because the indie community already has a hard enough time as it is getting access to resources and to, be taken seriously. So if we can do that for ourselves, when one of us succeeds, then we all succeed.
That's a very different culture from what usually you would find in the traditional publishing outlets, isn't it?
Yes. Well,
You
I have,
describe a culture of cooperation.
yeah, my friends frequently call me disgustingly optimistic.
Well, I think the way that the world is at large, and also just the competitive nature that saturates the creative industries, I think disgustingly optimistic is what some people need. And I think that optimism, that enthusiasm, and the freedom that you describe, I think it resonates with a lot of people. I mean, obviously, you're for those of you who don't know, Curious Corvid is just over a year and a half old now. Is that correct?
That's
And
right.
already you are representing 13 authors and adding more.
Yes.
You took Curious Corvid opened its house in May and received 10 submissions, which is remarkable for a publishing company of this age and size.
Yes.
And so we'll be adding some authors soon to our ranks. And that's quite an accomplishment for that short amount of time. So obviously, what your people are buying, what you're selling, it's resonating with people. People have been looking for this kind of thing, so the demand is there.
It's been really exciting. I I thought it was going to be, I thought I would be very hard pressed to find people to work with me when I first got started, because I didn't have anything going on. I mean, I had my own book that I had redone through my company, so at least I had something. But beyond that, I didn't have anything. And so I was really surprised and humbled by the feedback that I got when I first opened my doors and people started coming in, and was just really excited with the people that I then signed, because they all are very much positive and supportive and passionate people. And that's the kind of people I wanted to work with.
Wow. Well, that is a very inspiring message. And now, instead of not having enough people at your table, you're struggling to build a table big enough to accommodate everybody.
This is
and
true.
You've even branched out to some new projects to try and bring more people in.
Yes.
So in the past year and a half, I've had a very busy year and a half. I know, because I've been along for the ride for a lot of it, so I've been able to see some of it. What would you say that you are the most proud of accomplishing?
That's a good question. This is probably going to sound selfish, but I am proud that I have something that is mine and something that I was able to do and to get started on my own and to continue. And Curious Corvid is not really just mine anymore. It belongs to everybody who's a part of it. But throughout my life and the things that I have experienced and trying to find out who I was, I just had like little bits and pieces of myself that always belonged to someone else or was because of other people. And Curious Corvid is the one thing in my life that I have that is mine, that I made like myself, and that was welcomed and loved by so many other people. And I'm really proud that out of everything that I have experienced in my life, that I was able to make something that is so good. And I'm proud that even after all this time and after all of its growth and everything, that I've still been able to maintain that passion of being creative and being, just free to write whatever it is that you want to write, and having that ability to be seen and to be recognized, not for how much money I could make, but because of just my ability to create.
Usually asking people a question about what's your favorite this, what's your favorite that, asking them to single something out is usually a very difficult question to answer. But you answered that question very well and very thoughtfully, I might add. But it shows. I mean, you are always ready, in my experience, to talk about Curious Corvid. You're always ready to talk about your authors, always ready to give a defense for why you think they're valuable, why you think what you have to offer is valuable. And that conviction, I think, also really sets Curious Corvid apart. Like, you're always telling us, which is good advice for any author, especially when you're starting out, be confident in what you have, believe in what you have, because nobody is going to believe in it as much as you should. And having that confidence, if you believe it, then other people will believe it too. And you believe in Curious Corvid Publishing.
I do.
There's no one who would ever doubt that at all. If there is no question that you are proud of Curious Corvid, there is no question that you are proud of your authors for whatever they do. And you're even happy for them, and you're proud of them, and you support them, even if they publish through other companies other than Curious Corvid, right?
Absolutely. David Grinnell, the author of Ashes and Moonglade, has a novel coming out from a different publishing house. He is getting published with Quill Keepers. And I was so proud of David for taking that step out from Curious Corvid and putting his work back out into the indie world, knowing that he could be rejected or that it couldn't go well, but he did it anyway. And I'm very proud of him for doing that, because I think that it's important, like you said, that you always believe in your work. And I think that when you start spreading if you want to be successful in the long term, spreading your work out and getting your name out there and around is really important to that.
And I think that just demonstrates even further what we talked about before, the culture of cooperation rather than competition that you have, and that permeates the atmosphere of Curious Corvid Publishing. And it really demonstrates, I think, that you are not in it for personal gain, that you truly want your authors to succeed, and you're going to work to do whatever it takes to help them succeed, even if it doesn't help you. And that kind of selflessness, it's uncommon, and it's understandable why. I mean, the creative industry is not easy. Nobody goes into it because they think they're going to make a quick buck, or they don't think it's a get-rich-quick scheme. No. We go into it because it's what we're good at, or because it's what we love. But over time, it can make you desperate. And desperation makes you essentially want to fight with other people, but you have managed to keep your optimism. What's your secret? How do you stay so optimistic? If you could tell, especially new authors or aspiring authors, how to stay optimistic, even with all the challenges of publishing, what would you tell them?
Surround yourself with people who you have healthy relationships with. Surround yourself with people who are smarter than you and who have different abilities than you. Not only will it keep you humble when you do well, but it will also give you encouragement when you're not doing so well. And helping other people, if you are helping other people to succeed and you are working on developing yourself and cultivating your skills, and you're surrounded by people who are also doing that, you're always going to be motivated to keep on doing that. And it's important that the people around you can depend on when you are having a hard time or when you are struggling, that you can be honest with what you're going through or what you're experiencing with, and you know that they're going to help set you straight or pick up some of your load or just be there to listen in the long run. But I really do believe that success and motivation and optimism lies in the people that you surround yourself with. Because once you start doing things with your life and you start building yourself up and you start growing, not everyone is going to love that, because not everybody has the motivation to do better. So it's important to surround yourself with people that are on the same framework that you are.
And you're always going to have people in your life who just don't believe.
Don't get it.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's hard because sometimes you'll have friends, family, loved ones who they don't have the vision that you do.
Yeah.
They can't see it for what it is. And sometimes I read this metaphor online that I really like, that trying to make a great piece of art, a book or whatever it is that you're making, is like having a lake in your head and you're trying to get it out with a spoon. And you're telling people this lake is going to be so amazing, you have no idea, but all they see is the spoonfuls. And you know it's going to be great when you get there, but one spoonful at a time is really tough. So you having that support system, I completely agree, is so very important, because you can't always rely on yourself, right?
No.
I mean, trying to do things alone is really, really, really difficult. And I like that the importance of delegation that you pointed out, the understanding that there are people who can do things better than you can.
And it's okay.
And that it's okay to ask for help. Yeah.
It's okay if you don't know how to do everything. My saying that I have adopted for going forward in life is, if I don't know, I can learn. And if I can't learn, I can network.
Great words to live by, especially for people who are newly getting into this.
Yeah.
And real quick, if you could give somebody who is new to this and maybe doesn't have a support system and is looking to find other like-minded individuals, where would you say would be a good place for them to look for help, for support, for like-minded people who could give them the kind of advice and support that you're talking about?
Well, we actually have a Discord server that has a chat in it for you to talk about your writing or whatever it is that's going on. And most of our authors are in it, and they're all very friendly. And if you go to our website and click on Nights with Ebon Pinion, you'll find the Discord logo, and you can click on that and it will take you right to our server. And we have people in there all the time talking, and it's a really nice place to just network and kind of see what everybody else has going on, ask questions, and participate in any live events that we have going on, like our author roundtables or anything else that we have. So
that's right.
It's a great community, and it's not cliquey or anything like that. So it's a nice little space for everybody.
That's true. And the atmosphere of cooperation over competition that we've mentioned a couple times is pervasive there in the Discord channel as well.
Yes.
Everybody in there wants to see everybody else succeed.
Yes.
We don't see it as a zero-sum game. We see it as, like Ravven is so fond of saying, when one of us succeeds, we all succeed and we all bring each other up. Yes. And so if you're looking for help, if you're looking for advice or helping workshopping your network, or workshopping your work and expanding your network, that's a great place to start. Great place to make connections. If there aren't people there who can help you, they probably know someone who can.
Absolutely.
So reach out and ask for help. Can't hurt to try. Worst they can do is tell you no.
That's
now,
right.
What I want to ask you about next, going back to what we mentioned a couple minutes ago, all the different things, different and new projects, new content that's coming out from Curious Corvid Publishing in the last year and a half. Tell us about that for a bit. Tell us about some of the interesting things that you've been working on and what you like about them.
Oh my gosh. Well, we've had a lot of great things come out of Curious Corvid. Nights with Ebon Pinion, as I mentioned, is our little TV series, which you'll be watching this on our YouTube. And then we also host live events in our Discord, like our author roundtables, and I do spooky night readings every other Friday. And it's just a nice way to learn about the industry and see what's happening in the indie community. We also have our Magpie Messenger, which is our literary journal. This was spearheaded primarily by you, Mark, and who brought it to our table. And I was nervous to start it at first because it seemed like a lot. But then we did the first issue and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I'm so excited about it. So the Magpie Messenger is our new literary journal. It comes out on each solstice and equinox with a special edition for Halloween. And we are currently accepting submissions for the Harvest edition, for the Circus and Frost. And you can find all the details for that on our website underneath submissions. And it is a beautiful magazine that features indie artists, writers, original pieces of poetry and short stories, chapter releases. There it is. It's beautiful. It has articles about the indie industry. It's just stunning. I'm so proud of it.
I am proud of it as well. It was truly a labor of love, as most things in Curious Corvid are. And this was just, I mean, this was honestly a prototype, a rough draft. This is 72 pages long. So for a very reasonable price, I believe it's $15 for an individual copy. Not bad for a magazine this size. I mean, you see how thick that is. But if I'm remembering correctly, you can go on the Curious Corvid website and you can sign up for a subscription program.
Yes.
And get every issue automatically mailed to you. And that is only, how much is that per month?
It's $6 a month. So you get a discount and then you won't have to worry about ever missing an edition. It'll just show up in your mailbox once they publish.
And that sounds like a great way to stay updated with what's going on and get, I mean, you get a little bit of content.
Yes.
You get a nice assortment of content. I mean, there's a lot of variety in this one, and
yes.
The submissions that we've already gotten for Harvest, we've got a lot of really nice variety in that as well.
Yeah.
What would you? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say it's so exciting to see the variety of poetry and short stories and original pieces by people in the indie community.
What would you say your favorite section of the first issue was? If you have one, can you think of one?
My favorite section, oh my gosh. Probably my favorite section was the ads that you made for the upcoming books. So there was
yes.
There was a section for Jennifer, a section for David, and a section for Mark showing off their upcoming and yes, Ray. Yes. Beautiful.
Right here we have this. Here's Ray's. Right after Ray's is David Grinnell. Right after that is Jennifer Gordon. And then last but certainly not least, Mark Pigott.
Yes.
And the greatest part about this was the ability, for me, from my perspective, was the ability to highlight these authors. And like, how many people can say they have an entire magazine spread? I mean, that's that's so great to be able to give them that and to be able to offer them that kind of exposure and to highlight them as they deserve to for all their hard work. Yeah.
Yes.
We also have some really fun articles in here. Like, I'm fond of the "Which Corvid Are You" quiz. That was really fun. I like that you made that, picking out
so
which one that you are. Yeah. And I am looking forward to making the rest of them. Got 5 issues coming out per year, so that is very exciting.
It is. It adds, I think, something really special to Curious Corvid and helps us stand out a little bit, and giving people a chance to be published. And in the indie world, or even in the mainstream world, literary journals can be very competitive and very hard to get into, which is something that I wanted to kind of do away with ours. I wanted it to be more down to earth and just giving people a chance to be to have the spotlight for a little bit. We get so many rejections that sometimes we just really need a win. And I like that the Magpie can be that win for some people.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're systematically dismantling all of the barriers to get into the publishing world.
That's what I'm trying to do.
And with the Magpie Messenger, it seems to me that Curious Corvid is building a very nice like pathway of different tiers of engagement. Like, you can be a little bit involved in Curious Corvid. You can buy just a small thing and see what's going on. You don't have to spend much money, or you can be very invested and you can buy all the books. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think Curious Corvid is going to start offering some, like, there's one subscription tier right now where you get every copy of the Magpie Messenger, but eventually I believe we had a conversation about offering sort of like a almost a model similar to Loot Crate, in which you get your copy of the Magpie Messenger and you also get the books that have come out with Curious Corvid. So that would be really exciting. Well, you get to sign up for that and you just get a goodie box of Curious Corvid content at your doorstep.
I think that was going to be so much fun. And I really love the idea of making it accessible in different ways for people. You know, not all of us can afford to buy books every time they come out, but still being able to be part of the community in some way, I think, is really important. So having different levels of affordability is, I think, a nice perk to the subscription process.
I think so too. And having all these different avenues to be involved without any cost.
Any cost. Yes.
Yeah. Like the Discord is free. The YouTube channel is free, of course. There's content on Instagram. There's a blog on the website. I mean, there's so many different ways to be involved and just check out the content that different authors have. And that level of engagement and that the different ways to be engaged with the authors, I haven't seen in mainstream publishing. I mean, normally authors are pretty inaccessible.
Yes.
And I'm sure some of them prefer it that way, and they want to be away from it all. But you've made it so that the authors are right there. And if somebody likes somebody's content, they can just directly reach out to them and talk to them. They can join the Discord server and become friends with them if they want to, which I think is a level of accessibility and personality that is the value of which is frankly incalculable.
I think that personal touch makes such a difference, and that engagement and being able to talk to your favorite author. You know, I don't think that's something very many of us will ever be able to say that we did, is talk to our favorite author, unless we pay to go to a convention or we go to a book signing and we stand in line forever to see them. And even then, the interactions are very small. So being able to just drop a line for your author, or to be able to message them, is, I think, just really cool.
And I can speak from experience. Sometimes those interactions make you feel small, and makes you feel small and insignificant sometimes, sad though it is to say.
Yeah.
But they say never meet your heroes.
This is true.
That's one of the reasons why. So that makes me think of and makes me wonder, what originally prompted you to start Curious Corvid in the first place? You mentioned that you were interested in becoming an agent because you wanted to sort of right the wrongs, so to speak, that people encounter so much in this industry. But what brought Curious Corvid into play? I mean, why did you start your own Gothic press rather than, say, becoming an agent at a different company?
Um, Mostly because of independence. I had some experience with other companies in other platforms, and I just didn't quite have what it was I was looking for. And I really wanted the independence to do whatever I wanted with my own work. And I've always just kind of been that way where I'll do it because I want to know how to do it, or I want to learn how to do it. And so I think it was just independence and stubbornness. And also I was kind of like, I'll never have to deal with rejection then if it's my own publishing house. And but once I got started, the first person that I ever published was Jennifer Gordon, and her book was Poems to Read in the Rain. And she and I had been part of a poets society that had disbanded. And it was very sad. And I was sorry to see that go because I liked having the community. And she messaged me and she was like, so I have this book. Would you be interested in publishing me? And I was really frightened at the idea of taking on somebody else so soon when I had just literally gotten started. But I decided to take the plunge because I've kind of always been that person where if I'm going to do it, we're just going to go all in. We're going to do all of it. No half-assing it, and no half in and out. We're just going to dive in. So it was kind of one of those moments where I was just took a step out into the unknown and just went for it.
And it paid off, clearly.
It paid off. It was a very scary moment. So sometimes I still have moments where I think, who do you think that you are? But I
was about to ask, do doubts come up very often?
Yes, all of the time. I feel a huge responsibility for everyone that I represent in the house. I don't ever want to let them down. I don't want to disappoint them. I want to make sure that I'm always doing the very best that I possibly can. But there will always be situations that I can't control. In the time that I've had Curious Corvid open, I've gone through lots of different changes and issues with my printing companies and dealing with COVID and all of the changes, in shipping and it can be a lot sometimes, but I still believe in my heart that it's worth it, because at the end of the day, the people that I work with are just lovely people who are patient and who are willing to work with me. And I think that partnership is so important, remembering that it is a partnership, and to make it work, both of us have to do what we're supposed to do.
Right. It goes both ways.
Yes.
It's not just what you do, but it's also how the authors will work with you. Because if they refuse to work with you, then there's nothing really you can do. You can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped.
Exactly.
So all that you've learned in the past year and a half of building Curious Corvid and how much it is, again, impressively grown, if you had the chance to do it over again, what might you do differently?
I think if I had the chance to do it over again, I would have looked for more help in the beginning. The first year of Curious Corvid was really, really stressful, and I took on much more than I should have taken on. And so I had a lot of late nights, and I was also recovering from a major illness at the time. And so it was a lot. And I'm glad that we came out the other side. But if I could go back and if I could change anything, I wouldn't have done so much of it on my own. And I think that I would have been more open to receiving help now that I've come out the other side and I work with, well, you are amazing. And I know that I can always depend on you and that everything's going to be fine. And we are able to communicate and talk with each other. And I appreciate that so much. And that's not something that I thought at the beginning, because at the beginning, I felt like I had to do everything by myself all of the time. And that I was like, it was a ride or die basically for me for quite a while.
Oh, I'm sure most, if not all, authors feel that way and probably go through a similar journey. They feel like if I don't do it all myself, then I can't really take credit for it. If I don't do it without accepting help, then it's not really valid. It's not really mine. And so what advice would you give to somebody feeling like that? How would you make them feel better about accepting help? Aside from how you already have by sharing your own experience.
First, I would say it's not a rush. If you're in a rush to get your work out there, you will make mistakes. It's much better to take a little bit longer to learn the process, to ask other people for their experience and for their perspective, and to take your time. And then I would say it's important to shift your perspective on what you think success is. It isn't, success, I believe, is very personal. I don't think that it can be measured by numbers, whether that be your followers or how much is in your bank account. I think success is the milestones and goals that you set for yourself along your journey. And when you take that step back, even in the worst of times, and you reevaluate your surroundings and you intentionally look for your progress and you intentionally focus on the positive things in your life, I think that shift in how you view what you're going through will help immensely. It's not about the numbers. It's just about you and your journey.
Well, that is very inspiring and very encouraging. And encouraging is one of the things that you do best, and one of the things that I admire so much about you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for that answer, and thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, we're out of time for this episode, but Ravven, thank you so much for joining us and telling us all about Curious Corvid and about your experience in building it.
Anytime. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Stay tuned for all the great things that Curious Corvid has coming up. You can connect with them on their website, on all major social media channels, especially Instagram and Twitter. We've got Ebon Pinion, Nights with Ebon Pinion coming up with all new content coming out. We've got regular author roundtables as well as interviews just like this one, more with Ravven and with other authors coming up. We've got new issues of the Magpie Messenger coming out on a regular basis. There's always new books coming out for you to read. So thanks for joining us for Nights with Ebon Pinion, and we'll see you next time.